I teach in mechanical engineering. I also teach for some civil engineering classes, and this quarter I'm teaching a mountain surveying class. So I got interested in surveying through the Country High Points project. So I'm trying to climb the highest mountain in every country in the world. And I learned that some countries haven't been surveyed accurately enough to even know which is the highest mountain. So to figure that out, I taught myself how to survey. And so I started bringing professional survey equipment to different countries. So this started with Saudi Arabia. There were two candidate high points, Jabal Sauda and this other mountain, Jabal Farwa. And everyone thought Jabal Sauda was the tallest, but I thought it wasn't actually certain. My brother Matthew and I brought professional survey equipment over there and surveyed each peak. We found actually Jabal Farwa, which no one had ever heard of, is actually the tallest mountain in Saudi Arabia. What we could have done, my brother and I, is just go climb both of the peaks that we knew were the top two and say we're good. But then that wouldn't help any future climbers. Then everyone else, if they wanted to be sure they got the high point, they'd have to do both. So that was one motivation to survey. That got me thinking other countries might not have been surveyed accurately enough. So now I tend to bring survey equipment to other countries and try to figure it out on my own. So in advance, I'll look at all existing surveys that have been published, and I'll see what is the highest mountain based on those. So how LiDAR works is an airplane flies over a mountain and it bounces a signal down. And it knows its location, it measures the time for the signal to come back, and it figures out the mountain's elevation. But LiDAR can have some errors. It can hit bushes and it can classify this as ground. And it can also miss data points. So it only hits the ground like every 5 or 10 feet. So if there's a sharp boulder in between there, it'll miss it. And if there are multiple candidates that are within the arrow bounds of each other, the only way to resolve which is actually the highest is to do more accurate surveys, which are ground surveys. So the equipment I bring can get accuracies down to like the nearest inch. Yeah, so one interesting one was the Uzbekistan high point. So what I discovered there is the highest mountain actually had never been surveyed and had never been climbed. So everyone thought this peak, it's called Peak 4643. Some people incorrectly call it Khazrat Sultan, but that's a different mountain. So it's officially unnamed, and people thought that was the highest mountain in Uzbekistan based on the only existing survey that had ever been done. In 1981, the Soviet surveyors made a topo map of the area, and they surveyed Peak 4643. But to the south, there's another mountain that they didn't survey. They just put some approximate topo lines on it. And I was looking at the satellite digital elevation models, and it showed both of them the same height within the air bounds of the measurement. So I went in there in 2023 and took a bunch of ground measurements, and I proved that, and I measured that this new mountain, Alpomish, is actually the highest mountain in the country. And it's actually like 25 meters taller than the other mountain. So if the surveyors in 1981 had pointed their theodolite at it, they would have known, but they just didn't. And the mountain actually had never been climbed. So I brought a bunch of rock gear in there. I didn't even have a picture of it in advance. So just brought everything possible. And it turned out to be like a 7-pitch, 5/8 rock climb up the easiest route we could find. So there's a handful of countries in Africa that also haven't been surveyed carefully enough. So I found new country high points in Gambia, Togo, and Guinea-Bissau. So I just got them published in a journal, Progress in Physical Geography. So the journal has now recognized the measurements for Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, Togo, Guinea-Bissau, and Gambia. So they're scientifically recognized. In Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Climbing Federation also recognizes the results now. So that's like officially recognized by the government and by scientists. So that's pretty much as official as you can get. Now the three countries in West Africa, I haven't talked to the local governments yet, but now that this scientific journal paper is out, I can do that. If I just like post my results in a trip report, even though I know they're accurate, there are a lot of people who just won't trust them. A lot of people think a survey conducted 50 years ago is perfectly accurate, is perfect, no error, and they think mountains can never change. And so with my surveying, I've discovered that actually older surveys can be in error. Some mountains may not have been ever surveyed, and then the mountains can change. And a lot of people still don't trust that those kind of things can happen. And so one way to get those people to trust it is to get these measurements published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal article. So that's as rigorous as you can get. Like once you go through the peer review process in a journal, it's pretty much accepted as fact. That is like the most official, that is the most rigorous you can do. So that's what I've done actually with all of my measurements now. Pretty much every single measurement I've ever done on a mountain is now in a peer-reviewed scientific journal article. And so now if a government entity is using the incorrect information, I can present to them the journal article, and then they can try to update their information. And there's always going to be people like Wikipedia who just don't trust me no matter what. They don't care. And I think Wikipedia is just an unreliable resource. No one should trust that for mountains. So it's important to know that past measurements can have errors, and technology exists now that can find elevations down to the nearest inch. And I've been using the most accurate technology available, using the most rigorous methods, and I'm publishing the results in peer-reviewed scientific journals. So this is pretty definitive. What I'm measuring and what I'm publishing are the true country high points. So if you want to climb the highest mountain in a certain country, you should do your homework, what measurements have been done, figure out what's the right one to climb. Peak Bagger is actually, I would say, the most reliable source for mountain elevations around the world. So they'll use the most accurate, up-to-date information and update it. So anything you see on Peak Bagger, that's the most accurate you can find for mountain elevations and country high points.